Thank you, everybody, for taking the time on a weekday to join the Dallas Fort Worth March edition of the user group. Very excited today to have Jeffrey Bennett joining us. He is a senior technical specialist based out of San Antonio, very passionate about technology and innovative thinking. He also runs the Local Master Series, which I'll drop a link for. But Jeffrey, thanks for taking the time to share with the group tonight.
Yeah, thanks, Geetha. I at least wanted to be on camera for the introduction. I've been having some bandwidth issues today, so I'll go off camera for the presentation. But as Geetha mentioned, I'm a technical specialist with Microsoft, primarily focused on the Power Platform, which of course is going to encompass the artist previously known as Power Virtual Agents, which is now Copilot Studio. So I am, as she mentioned, based in the San Antonio area, just northwest of San Antonio, out in the Hill Country, and make trips to the Houston area quite often, as I tend to support a lot of the oil and gas industry. So I'm looking forward to talking to you guys today. Let me, let me go off camera.
Yeah, I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to just run through some announcements and then the floor is all yours. This is like the agenda that we're following for today, doing some intros, sharing some recent announcements, and then we'll hand it over to our guest speaker today to talk about managing the spectrum of AI. And then we'll open it up for Q&A. A quick introduction about myself. I am a practice lead leading the biz apps practice focused on no code, pro code, and AI scenarios. I also business applications MVP and also run the Dallas Fort Worth user group. Also lead the Women in Power events and networking pillar. I'm very excited to be using this platform here to provide opportunities for each of us to collaborate, network, and learn. So from recent announcements, we usually, as part of the user group, we take the first couple of minutes to just list the top 3 or top 5 announcements that we've come across during the month since the last time we've met. And so for today, I have top 3 announcements that I just picked based on that I thought would be good for the group to know. So the first one here is the Copilot Studio agents with Microsoft Intro External ID. So if you have scenarios where you're using Copilot Studio and you would want to integrate customer access, then and this is a blog post that I came across as part of the dev blog. So articles that they post, which had a very detailed step-by-step instruction on how to go through that process. So what you really can do is today you have the capability of ensuring very secure and seamless access to applications. And I know if any of you have used Copilot Studio, you know that it's a cutting edge platform that enables you to create and customize AI agents. But however, integrating the customer access, external facing users to be able to access your Copilot Studio agents via the Microsoft Entra external ID isn't straightforward. It's just not available at the box. There's some configuration that needs to happen before you can do that. And so some of the prerequisites that you need to have in place, you have to have a Copilot Studio account in the sense you have to have a tenant license and a Copilot Studio user license assigned to the one who's building or managing the agent. And then you do have to have an external tenant on the Microsoft Entra Admin Center. And then apart from that, you want to make sure that if you're the one developing the agent, you or even configuring the security, you want to have the cloud application administrator role on Microsoft Entra. Now, these are some screenshots from the blog post. I'll be dropping links for all the resources that I'm going to be talking about today. These show you the process and the steps that are needed for you to get this to work. So this integration uses a generic OAuth 2.0 service provider, and the setup involves obtaining a redirect URL from your Copilot Studio agent. And then on your Azure portal, you want to register an application and then also configure the authentication settings within Copilot Studio, like capturing the client credentials and then any profiles that you would want to open up. And once that's configured, then your customers can securely log in to your agents, and that makes sure that all the interactions are protected. So that was the first announcement. This next one is really hot off the press. I just saw this posted out today, and this answers the 2 of the most important questions that we all have when we use agents is how can I strive towards having more enterprise grade security? And then how can I scale my agent governance strategy? So the latest advancements in Copilot Studio reflect the commitment that Microsoft has had or has always shared, which is empowering organizations to harness the full potential of AI while maintaining really good security and governance in place. And so they're offering a bunch of tools that would allow the IT professionals to confidently adopt and administer AI agents. So there's really 2 parts to this. One is the managed security. So this is where you leverage the tools within the Microsoft Power Platform to bring together the capabilities that are needed to secure your apps, your flows, your Copilot Studio agents, and any business data backing them. The second part of this is managed governance. So this is to ensure that you have a more scalable management of agents, empowering admins with more efficient controls. So you have much more insights that are actionable, you have more proactive guidance, and then the right tooling so you can enforce the right set of environment strategies. A couple of key highlights as part of this release is that we have enhanced identity and access management. So that's what we talked about in the first slide, which is opening it up through Microsoft Entra external ID to allow external customers to be able to access. As part of governance controls, there is the Security Hub, which is, think of it more like a centralized platform that would provide IT admins with the tools to not just monitor, but also manage and enforce the security policies for all your agents that you build. So this hub will ensure consistency in terms of applying governance standards and then also reduce any potential vulnerabilities that you could expect to come your way. And then lastly, there's also the data protection and compliance side of things. There is the potential of integrating with Microsoft Purview. So any organization can classify and label their data, especially with sensitive data. And then that integration will make sure that the compliance with regulatory standards are in place. And then last time we had a meeting, we talked about the release of the pay-as-you-go model for Copilot Studio. So with managed governance, you now have the ability to leverage the pay-go experience within Copilot Studio directly from within the Power Platform Admin Center. So you have the ability to go and analyze what's happening from a capacity management standpoint. So this new experience will give you that flexibility to look at how the metering is by product type, and then also see if it's impacting any of your budget. This last announcement for now is the launch of the Power Cat tools. This is also one of my favorites that I've seen so far. This is a comprehensive suite of features. This is designed to aid your development experience within the platform. So whether you're a seasoned Power Platform maker or if you're an administrator looking for ways to maybe optimize the way you develop, or you're just getting started with the platform, the Power Cat tools suite would gives you like a lot of valuable resources and tools for you to make more efficient, build more efficient solutions with easier ways. Some of the key features are the code review tool. That's the first screenshot that you see there. What that does is it automatically reviews code to identify any potential issues earlier on in your development process. It also provides very like actionable insights. So you can see like how it has the status, title, and description. It tells you severity from a failure standpoint. And then it highlights areas that require attention and gives you a more standardized checklist of best practices, potential best practices that you would want to be leveraging. So it does, end of the day, this tool will help your developers on whether it's an app or a bill to maintain higher standards in their code and likely reducing errors and enhancing your overall performance. The next screenshot at the bottom there is the other part of the tool set, which is the AI generated solution documentation. The documentation is one of those things that requires a lot of time, but now using AI, and now you're able to automate solution documentation. So this actually reduces the manual effort required. So all you have to do is just simply upload an unmanaged solution, and then you choose which sections of the document that you want to be see populated, and then you can now export it to Word. And now it's a quick and easy way to generate documentation for the solution you built. The last screenshot there talks about the last feature that I want to highlight is the risk assessment. That is a feature that allows you to evaluate potential risks in the solution, whether it's by security roles or even if you want to give any actionable mitigation strategies, it does all of that. And then this is more of a proactive approach to help your makers and admins just maybe address risks in a way that they can take care of it proactively. And then also after deployment into prod, you also have the ability to ensure that the stability and that the security of the solutions in the system. That is all I had for today. I am going to hand it over to Jeffrey, and I can't wait to learn more from you.
Yeah, thanks, Geeta. Let me represent. Okay, just double checking again to make sure that you guys can see that. Good to go. Thumbs up. So I want to talk about the full spectrum of Microsoft's AI set of tools. I would assume at this point, whether you're utilizing some of the tools or at the very least, you've heard of Copilot. And Microsoft's got, admittedly, has muddied the waters when they launched so many Copilots at once. And a lot of the feedback that we've gotten is that there are too many and they're confused about what tool does what and what the capabilities of each one are. So what I want to do is walk through that entire spectrum and lay things out as if they are on a spectrum and try to explain the differences in the various copilots and when you would want to consider leveraging the capabilities of which tool based on the use case that you might be addressing. I've got some stuff to be able to go over some of the new governance and security features behind Copilot Studio. Etha did allude to some of those in some of the slides that she just shared. And so we can take a closer look and dive a little bit deeper. And then I've got some licensing overview. This can really vary quite a bit. So we may cut that and leave that out, but happy to address any questions. And then I know we've got a small group here today, and I know we've got some time set aside for open forum, but for the sake of hearing myself speak for the next 45 minutes, feel free to interrupt me. We can make this an open dialogue conversation. So I'm happy to take questions along the way. So the world of AI is coming very fast, and changes and updates to the tool sets are coming even faster. And Microsoft offers a wide spectrum of tools to use and to build a generative AI solution. And rather than start off with an overview of each one and then end with a comparison slide, I just thought I'd start off with the comparison slide and talk through some of these, and then we'll dig in a bit. There, there are a bunch of links to customer stories on the slide. I can leave these slides behind, or at the very least, paste these links into the chat in case you want to check some of them out or refer to them later. But if we start off in the far left, we have those persona-based Copilot. This includes the OG Copilot, the GitHub Copilot. GitHub Copilot was the very first Copilot, and to this day still remains the most popular and used of all of them. In fact, a lot of the Copilots that have preceded the GitHub Copilot the code was built using GitHub Copilot. So it's been a fantastic tool. Persona-based copilots have niche uses and are trained with specific models and instructions to perform a certain way. Moving into the spectrum, we have Microsoft 365 Copilot and Copilot Chat. It integrates into Microsoft 365 applications like Teams, Outlook, Word, Excel, and uses natural language to help users complete tasks within those applications. It's designed to boost productivity by automating repetitive tasks and by providing intelligent suggestions directly within the applications. For example, you can use M365 Copilot to draft personalized emails to clients or analyze large data sets to identify trends and opportunities and summarize meetings and emails that maybe you missed while you were out on vacation. Personally, I use this Copilot in various capacities, literally every single day. Actually, I think a great example was a couple weeks ago. I was out of the office on a Monday and Tuesday. She was out in LA and I was taking care of the kids and just took the opportunity to knock out a few things while I had the downtime. But I missed a lot of emails and chats in those first 2 days of the week. And the very first thing that I did on Wednesday of that week was ask my Copilot to review my missed emails and my chats from the previous 2 days and to summarize everything by putting them into bullet points. And if there were any chats or emails that had me as the only recipient, or if I was tagged directly in an email or again in a chat, then I wanted it to prioritize it as urgent and list it at the top of the summary list. So again, just a little example of a great way that at least I have personally taken advantage of and utilized M365 Copilot. But moving into the next part of the spectrum, when you want to create custom agents and or you want to extend the capabilities of some of these first party copilots, you've got an incredible tool and set of tools really inside of Copilot Studio. And I realize I'm here to discuss some of the differences in the various copilots, but as a technical specialist that's focused on the Power Platform, Copilot Studio is in my lane, and we're going to spend more of our time talking about it in this presentation. It is part of the Power Platform. And as I mentioned, it's sometimes referred to as the artist previously known as Power Virtual Agents, which may be a tool that some of you might be familiar with. But it allows you to create and customize your own AI agents using low code, no code set of tools. And you can design custom workflows and integrate with various data sources and create unique AI experiences with things like adaptive cards that are part of a set of tools that are available within Copilot Studio. And to the far right of the spectrum, we have Azure AI Foundry. This is a more advanced platform for developing AI solutions, and you can use it to create custom AI models, including natural language processing and computer vision. This set of tools definitely requires more technical expertise for building infrastructure and coding and training models, but it is ideal for organizations needing highly customized AI solutions with greater flexibility and customization. Now, by default, M365 Copilot and any agent that's built inside Copilot Studio, again, by default, will be using the GPT-4o as the language model, which is fantastic at natural language processing and response, but it's not necessarily great at indexing and pulling from extremely large sets of data or reasoning over computational logic. So this is where Foundry is helpful. You can ground your data on the GPT models, or you can use leaner ones like Llama or Phi 3. Heck, even a couple of weeks ago, we connected DeepSeek R1 directly to well, directly to Foundry, and then we were able to pull it in and call on it from an agent Copilot Studio. So keep that in mind. So even though that you might be building and training these other LLMs or SLMs with Foundry, you can still call on and interact with these models with custom agents that you have built in Copilot Studio. So this is where a suite of tools can be used for fusion development to really build highly customized solutions. Okay, so let's dive a little bit deeper into some of these tools. So Microsoft Ignite wasn't too long ago, a few months ago at this point. And possibly the biggest announcement around Microsoft's AI stack was the introduction of agents. So the idea with Microsoft 365 is that it is intended to be your personal work assistant that's grounded on your work content, like your emails, your calendar, chats, documents. And agents can be there to act autonomously on behalf of an employee or team, or simply to be part of a process. And they can also be built and connected directly to Copilot so they can be interacted with using natural language. But again, makers can build an agent that can take an action on their behalf without having to prompt the agent each time. And they will act in the background to respond to events like receiving an email or recording an uploaded file, all without the need for any sort of human interaction. So Microsoft gives users a head start with agents, providing templates for commonly used agent scenarios. Users will be able to customize these agents as needed within Copilot Studio, things like lead management, sales order, deal acceleration agents. And we also expect agents to be built by third-party vendors that can plug directly into Copilot Studio and ground itself on your data and processes. And of course, makers have the capability to create their own agents. And of course, agents can vary based on their levels of complexity and capabilities, and this can range from simple data retrieval to independently operated autonomous agent orchestration. So I'll pause there for now. Any questions? I don't have good visibility to the chat
Yeah,
window if
I
anything
will.
is happening.
I'll keep a track of that. And anyone, if you feel like you could raise your hand and ask the question, come off mute, or feel free to post the question in the chat. I can definitely help curate those questions and relay it out for Jeffrey. No questions
Are,
as of now.
are you going to talk a little bit more about the different type of agent on the Copilot?
Not the various agents in relation to templated agents, ones that have HR scenario or something like that. But I will discuss on my next slide. We're going to go into some of the different agents that are out of the box. Again, moving through the spectrum of what's available, but not necessarily the detailed ones.
Okay. Thank you.
And Donna, happy to we can have a follow-up conversation if there is something specific that you're interested in. I can either chase that down for you or set you
Yeah.
up with somebody internally.
And if you look at the open source framework, I haven't used the agent, the platform, Microsoft. They look at the open source agentic platforms, and you have the reasoning agents, you have the coordinator agents, and even you have different agents can do visualizations and generating chart. And I'm just curious whether the Azure agentic framework have those capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to spend we're going to spend most of our time here and a little bit on Copilot Studio, which would be that tool set that you would want to use for creating those custom agents. We've got when we're talking about getting really detailed, not detailed, but when we're talking about getting into custom language models or using a different type of AI model, AI vision, something like that's where Foundry comes into play. But the kind of the point is there's a wide breadth of tools for agent creation, and the right set of tools really depends on the complexity of the use case. But Microsoft provides tools to work with generative AI, whether you're an end user, maker, developer, whatever. There's quite a good breadth of tools to move through or work with. So the first set of products are Microsoft 365 Copilot and Copilot Chat. That's previously known as Bing Chat Enterprise, and even SharePoint agents. I know that's actually the first time I'm mentioning it, but SharePoint includes its own agent that is instantly grounded on the data within a site or within a list that you have. You would use these tools to question specific content or for team processes, maybe for a quick query or action to structure data. And by leveraging the built-in security and governance, these agents are great candidates for democratization across the business. Now, as we move, keep in mind, as we move from left to right, every previous use case carries forward, meaning we get a new set of tools to build upon and extend with the previous. You can build very simple use cases with Azure AI Foundry, but it's probably not the most efficient option when it comes down to it. The next set of tools are Microsoft 365 Copilot, specifically agents and Copilot Studio. So you can use a set of triggers to engage agents created with these tools and drive the conversation based on intent using topics. You can also engage external users with agents that have been created in Copilot Studio and put them in channels outside of Teams or outside of Copilot Chat. These tools are great for makers to create solutions to address kind of large, complex business processes, or to create a customer agent or field agent, maybe an HR agent. And our last set of tools allows for full control and customization. This includes Copilot Studio and Azure AI Foundry. So with Foundry, again, you can build out your own models or fine tune any existing models. You can also ground these models over massive data sets or over very complex documents as well. As an example, I'm working on architecting a solution for another client. They want as they're referring to it as an RFP document shredder. they want to be able to take the set of documents that they receive from some of their clients for to be able to do some sort of work. They're a large drilling company, and these documents can range in the number of documents they can receive. Each document can range widely in the number of pages, types of requirements. The structure is always different. Some of them are going to be just PDFs, some are a combination of PDFs, and you get it. If you've worked with RFPs, you kind of understand where I'm going with here. A lot of stuff. And so what they wanted to be able to do was have a an agent that they could point at a document repository that would contain all of the documents for a particular request for an RFP, and have this thing spit out three matrices. One of these would be a requirement matrix. One of them would be a hardware matrix, what they would need to accomplish the job, and a tertiary one. I forget what it was. For us, as we started off working this solution, and we were just utilizing Copilot Studio to do, we told it to let's look through, as we start out with a really simple document. Look through this one document and look for every instance of the word shall or must, right? So that would be something that you would consider, that you would be looking for requirements. Your product shall or must be able to do this or that, right? So we were looking for every instance of those two words. And then we wanted the model to, in a table, come back and give us that sentence, that requirement with shall or must, and then where in the document it found it. And it seemed fairly straightforward. We started off by just prompt engineering our way into that. And every time we submitted the request, we were getting a different kind of response. It wasn't until we realized, oh, it's trying to count the words, and we're using an LLM here. An LLM is great at reasoning over natural language, but it's not great at counting. So we ultimately ended with, we need to engage Foundry as part of the solution. We need a different model that we need to build out in this situation. And so that's ultimately where we ended on it. And that's what we're still moving forward with. But my point is, there comes a time where a different model is necessary. And that was one of those situations. The last thing I'll say about this set of tools is that you can create a custom UI as well for your agents with Foundry. Or again, you can still use Copilot Studio to create the agent and just call on the models that are built in Foundry. So it all depends on the use case that will ultimately determine the blend of tools that you may choose to use. So here's a single slide, grossly oversimplifying everything that I just said, but I think it does a good job as a reference. It's just important to keep in mind that as we move through the spectrum of Microsoft AI tools, they build upon each other. As I mentioned, I can use Foundry to build very simple agents that are grounded on data that might just be simply stored in SharePoint, but it underutilizes the tool and it isn't necessarily the most efficient option. Okay. So now let's slide directly into my lane and talk about Copilot Studio. This is the tool that will likely get used the most for those custom scenarios. There's a time and place for Microsoft 365 Copilot and agents that are built for Copilot Chat, but there comes a time when you need to extend the capabilities of your first-party Copilots or agents. And this is where Copilot Studio enters the room. So Copilot Studio is your one-stop shop end-to-end tool that provides a complete life cycle for designing, enhancing, and managing Copilots from a single pane of glass. We'll go into more details surrounding each of these, but Copilot Studio includes a set of workspaces within the building studio, as well as an admin studio to simplify management across different environments. Copilot Studio can start you off with a set of pre-built agents to get you started. Now, none of these, of course, are going to be connected to your data by default, but they're intended to give you a little bit of inspiration and a boost on common use cases. They've been given instructions on how to act and how to respond. And you can start off with any of these and configure the data sources, customize any actions that are necessary for your specific processes, and you're done. You can technically create a custom IT help desk agent by lunch in some cases. Excuse me. So both Copilot Studio from Microsoft 365 Copilot and Copilot Studio as a standalone tool have a ton of core capabilities. Keep in mind that Copilot Studio is an end-to-end conversational AI platform with a very intuitive user experience and design canvas. You can use conversational natural language to design and enhance your agents that can include logic and multi-turn orchestration to provide dynamic content based on the user. Do you have a question, Geetha?
No, sorry. That was probably just an audio blip there.
Oh, yeah, no, all good. So you can connect it to AI builder prompts, to custom data sources, or any of the existing 1,400, 1,500 connectors. I think we're starting to approach 1,500 that we've got out there. It can be used to trigger workflows that have been built in Power Automate or other agents built inside of Copilot Studio. And you can provide generative answers and actions with them. And as we've already discussed, it can be extended with pro dev tools like Foundry or even skills that have been built on the Azure Bot framework. And finally, it's easy to manage with its admin studio. And the fact that Copilot Studio is a platform on its own, it's also built on a trusted platform, that being the Power Platform. So how does Copilot Studio function as a platform? There are three main capabilities. I bet you can guess what they are. First, how you can design powerful connected copilots. Next, how you can enhance them with enhanced or rather advanced capabilities. And finally, how you can manage those securely across a multitude of channels. So we'll start with design. With Copilot Studio, you can easily handle complex queries by designing intelligent conversations with greater control over the large language model, including robust variable and dialogue management, logic, and different types of responses that you get out of the agent. You can create personalized, responsive interactions that engage employees or your customers with very rich, dynamic interactions that remember user content and context. And you've got the ability to customize your agents exactly how you want by building custom plugins or connectors and using prompts, custom prompts, and surfacing your business data wherever you need it. You can connect your organization's knowledge bases and use generative AI to dynamically respond using your org's real-time content. And you can also create automated workflows with Power Automate to trigger automation across your business with UI, API, DPA, and RPA automation capabilities. And when needed, you can escalate to live agents as well to continue the conversation with full context using some sort of end-to-end customer engagement platform like like Dynamics 365 for customer service, or something like ServiceNow even. There are several different modes of building that are available within the platform, from everything from low code to pro code. So that means that makers of all skill levels can begin to create and test together. Templates give you several pre-built scenarios to choose from, as we mentioned. I like the term describe it to design it. So you can start by just simply describing rather what you want your agent to do, and then just watch the AI do all the heavy lifting. You can use assisted authoring as well for individual topic creation or topic iteration, and even adaptive card generation, which is actually written in JSON. The user experience, I believe it was around Ignite. It has been refreshed. So it's much easier for makers to navigate and create, a lot more intuitive. And then, of course, for the pro coder, you can get a side-by-side view of the visual canvas and the YAML that it is creating in case you want to get detailed with it. There are 4 central building blocks that make up a custom agent. And with Copilot Studio, you can tailor these building blocks to meet your unique business needs. We start with knowledge, which is where you can define existing enterprise resources that your agent can query, like files or websites, even SharePoint, SAP, and I mentioned ServiceNow. Actions, they are tasks and processes that your agent can perform using your tools, like your data and your LOB services and applications. Logic is where you can define conversational paths for your agent to follow when it's triggered by some sort of user input. And then, of course, channels. Channels is where your end users can engage your agent, like Teams, Facebook, your company's website. So let's take a little bit of a closer look at these. Knowledge, as I previously mentioned, using knowledge is how you can define existing enterprise resources that your agent can query. You add your public and enterprise data sources using Copilot connectors, and your agent will be able to dynamically generate multi-turn answers in real time using your enterprise data, which makes it immediately useful. And right now, there are a variety of supported data sources, such as public websites, Dataverse, file uploads, SharePoint, OneDrive files, Microsoft Fabric, of course, being connected to the graph as well. Actions. So actions, again, they're tasks and processes that your agent can perform using your tools, like your data and lines of business services and applications. So you can easily connect your key LOB systems, whether they're first or third party. You can enable your agent to automate your business processes and complete different tasks. And Copilot Studio offers a few different types of actions. You've got your pre-built Power Platform connectors. There's a few logos at the bottom of the slide that kind of highlight some of the most popular ones, but there are more than 1,400. As I mentioned, I think we're getting close to 1,500 that are available to work with. And if there is an available connector, you can easily create custom connectors for any publicly available API. And of course, if this is behind your own, if it is a custom data source, we can still connect to a custom API. It doesn't necessarily need to be publicly available. You could bring in workflows as well, built using Power Automate, make those as part of the actions. These can be cloud flows. These can even be desktop flows, also known as RPA. So if we can even connect to a green screen legacy system as part of the knowledge that the Copilot can both consume and even provide input into. And you can also provide customer instructions on the model using AI Builder. And then, of course, lastly, the Azure Bot framework skills as well. Logic. This is probably one of the more important features of Copilot Studio. So Logic uses defined conversational paths for your agent to follow when it is triggered by some sort of user input. So this gives you complete control over critical scenarios like HR or legal questions by designing specific step-by-step topics. It also allows you to enable your agent to automatically select the most appropriate action or topic to respond to the user using Gen AI. And you can easily mix and manage both generative and custom dialogue in one agent. And it allows you to connect to your contact center as well. So your Copilot, or rather your agent, can escalate and hand off the conversation with full context to a live human. So Logic makes a lot of sense. Right now, again, I'm working with another company on architecting a solution, and they've got one that they're working on that's an internal bot. And one of the examples that we were working on was they have this SharePoint site where they've got all their internal knowledge base, how to reset passwords and how to access certain systems and all these kind of things. And they've done a great job of building out that repository with all this knowledge. They wanted to be able to now bring that user experience to a Copilot, to have an agent experience, an agentic experience where the user can just simply ask, how do I reset my password? Instead of looking through a library of knowledge base articles. And when we got to exactly that example, how do I reset my password? All they had done initially was just pointed to the repository. And of course, that very simple question, not likely, it did have multiple responses or sources for response to that question. Because there were things like, how do I reset my corporate password? How do I reset my Dynamics password? How do I reset my SFTC password? And so they had all these articles. And so the agent would scour the source and would come back with really the first one. So often you were getting a different response. So this is where logic comes in place, where a user may come in and trigger a topic by saying, how do I reset my password? And that agent now knows, oh, we're going down this path. I've got a question to ask you. What system are you talking about? And then now the user responds with their system. I need to reset my corporate password. And now the agent down that topic that conversational path can now select which source of knowledge is going to have the source of truth around how to reset my corporate password, because now it fully understands intent. So logic, very important. And as you go through the process of designing any custom agent, it's important to consider the user experience, the types of questions that they would be asking of the agent. So that way you can consider any sort of necessary logic to go find the answer to provide them with the correct response. Does that make sense? And finally, channels. So this is where your end users can engage your agents. Again, like Teams, Facebook, your company website. You can publish and deploy your agent to your channel or channels of choice. You can even add your agent to a custom app that's been built inside of Power Apps, or a custom website that's been built with Power Pages. You can also access channels through ISVs like WhatsApp and even Apple Messages for Business. All right. So if you remember, we've got 3 pillars. Pillar 2 is enhance. This part of the agent lifecycle is enhancing with advanced capabilities. So in Copilot Studio, you can customize your agents with pro dev tools by integrating with Azure AI Foundry, with Azure Cognitive Services, the bot framework, and a variety of other Microsoft conversational services. You can analyze your agent's performance because Copilot Studio includes built-in conversational analytics that automatically track critical KPIs. And that allows you to continuously improve the conversation through AI driven features that help you fine tune your agent over time by providing suggestions on how to optimize your conversations. So Copilot Studio is a SaaS platform. So that means we as Microsoft tend to do all the heavy lifting for you, infrastructure management, model training, security, things like that. But if you want to go the extra step and have full custom control over your agent, you can easily do that by integrating with Azure AI Foundry. There are breadth of capabilities from Azure that you can use with Copilot Studio. Like you can bring your own custom language model. You can connect to more knowledge bases. You can have granular control over the development process, add image generation with Dolly. You can even customize your analytics and telemetry to make sure your users are getting the most out of their interactions with your agents. Copilot Studio's built-in conversational analytics dashboard offers a very simple, clear view of how your agent is doing and performing. You'll be able to see which topics are having the greatest impact on escalation, as well as any sort of abandonment or resolution rates, what the most common questions your users are asking your agent. You can see detailed CSAT data and session transcripts, and you can understand instances where your agent didn't successfully return an answer. And the final pillar is management. One of the most common questions we get is around security. So Copilot Studio is a globally secure SaaS, and it's fully HIPAA, high trust, and PCI compliant. And most importantly, it's built on Microsoft's responsible AI platform, which protects your users and your systems from any sort of harm, that provides content control and is continually improved every single day. You get the benefits of a global SaaS platform, which will eliminate infrastructure concerns, allows you to scale securely, and simplify management and governance with unified controls. Your agent is always compliant, and you can be confident that. So it again meets the necessary regulatory standards for your area or for your industry, like HIPAA, high trust, FedRAMP, PCI, SOX, ISO. I'm sure I'm missing a couple. You can safeguard your data. You can deploy and scale with confidence using data encryption, data loss prevention policies, GDPR, and privacy standards, and of course, a lot more. And you can be sure that you're using AI responsibly. So all generative AI features are aligned to Microsoft's responsible AI principles. Right now, Copilot Studio is available worldwide across 22 data centers. There are 10 for generative AI through Azure OpenAI services, which is, of course, continuing to expand. It's available on national clouds, including commercial GCC and GCC High, and right now is available in 23 languages, both for building your solution as well as responding to users. What's great about that specifically right now is I can say that I want my Copilot to speak these different types of languages and put it out there and publish it. And for the most part, it's going to respond in the language that it's spoken into. There's some limitations right now on using generative AI as part of the process, or I'm sorry, generative answers as part of the process, is that it's only available in English. But again, still available in 23 languages for even creating them and still responding to users. There are 6 core principles that really should guide any work around AI. Of course, fairness, which is how AI allocates opportunities or resources or information in ways that are fair to the humans who use it. Reliability and safety and privacy and security ensure that we're considering how well the system functions for people across different conditions and contexts, including ones it was not originally intended for, and how we safeguard that information. Inclusiveness looks at how the system should be designed to be inclusive of people of all abilities. And lastly, transparency and accountability accounts for how people could misunderstand, misuse, or incorrectly estimate the capabilities of the agent. And as regulations evolve and customers need help establishing the right guardrails and guidance for implementing their own governance systems, Microsoft's there to help. And that's why we publish resources like the responsible AI standard. And we share our learnings and framework for implementing responsible AI policies and practices. And the responsible AI standard is just one way that we're helping customers meet this AI moment in time safely and responsibly. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about governance, security, and administration of the Copilot Studio. Before I jump into that, I know we just went over a lot around Copilot Studio and the different pillars that stand it up, but any questions? Geetha, any questions in the chat
I
at
don't
this
see
point?
any questions in the chat. There was a comment from Don just asking if you could see a demo of how agents work in the space, but no open questions. I do have a question. Yep. So, from your experience, what are some key factors businesses should consider when starting with Copilot Studio to ensure that they have a successful implementation?
Yeah, great question. I think when it comes down to the things that they want to keep in mind, making sure the data first is clean is going to be probably the top priority because you can structure your data. If it's not structured correctly, ultimately that's what you're feeding the agent and providing for the knowledge source for it. I'm reminded of the good adage, garbage in, garbage out. If we're not giving and structuring the data correctly for our agent to access, then I shouldn't expect a good, clean response back from it. So the thing that you really want to make sure that you're keeping in mind is that your data is structured correctly, that it's in a way that can be indexed correctly. And if there is any sort of relational data that's coming into from a variety of data sources, this is where we want to keep logic in mind and take advantage of topics because I might have, if I'm asking about what's the latest status on account XYZ, and I've got a sales CRM system, and I've got an ERP system, and I've got a customer service system, and all three of those have disparate data. I want to make sure that the agent is identifying the intent that the user has and is driving to the proper source to come back with the right response. But yeah, great question, Keith. I think clean data is going to be imperative.
Yep.
Thank you.
I have a similar question along the line on the data side.
Sure.
Of course, you need to have good data, garbage in, garbage out, but you also have to prepare the data in a specific way. Let's say if you are using your knowledge base, you can't just use your document. You have to go through, correct me if I'm wrong, to go through the embeddings, the vectors, or it's a different way to do this thing.
Yeah, that's going to come down to the type of data that you're actually trying to index. If it's very complex data, this is where I think Don, you're going to probably want to look into Foundry a little bit. And if you're going to be trying to index over a very complex set of documents, even though those just might sit inside of SharePoint, you're going to likely want to have a custom model built on top of that data and grounded on that data.
We did this ourselves, actually. I just wonder using the Copilot to, but the data part of it, we still have to go through it, right? We have to have the embedding model, we have to create the vectors, and have to store it somewhere. Although our original document is over 5,000 documents stored in SharePoint, you still have to have the data pipeline in place to sync your original document with whatever vector database you have for unstructured data.
Isn't it?
Right?
Correct. Yes. So you're still going to still have to have it structured. I think the data that you're likely looking at using, especially with 5,000 plus documents and a variety of them just the same, this is where you're going to want to utilize a custom model again with Foundry, but you're still going to build that agentic experience is still going to be built using Copilot Studio. But when, again, using logic, when a specific question or set of questions is asked, and the agent understands the intent of the question, using logic, you're going to drive them to that other model. It's grounded on that complex set of data.
Sure.
I just see John have your hands up. Yeah.
Yep.
Please go.
Sorry, isn't that the case? So in what you're talking about there, that really one of the big depending factors is the size and quantity of the data that you're looking to try and connect your agent to. So in the case of what you're saying, when you're talking 5,000 different documents, which could be how many pages long, you really need to go through that other process where you're using the Foundry to try and build that semantic database to be able to, or collection to be able to put that all together. However, if you're looking at smaller data sets, so for the example that I used here, where I was putting together, they had 20 different how-to documents that they'd set up on how to use their basic system, being able to drop that into a SharePoint folder, then turning an agent toward the SharePoint folder. I didn't have to go through all the levels of loading that you're talking about when you're talking those mass data sets.
Yeah.
I could basically take the tool, point it at it, and that was it.
Yeah. That's one that's a nice, beautiful, easy path for 20 documents, nice and easy. It's not going to be complex. There's no tables in the documents. There's no images in the documents. Just a set of data for me to, as an agent, to consume and use as my source of knowledge for responding. Yeah, that's great. I think Don. Yeah, go
Another
ahead.
challenge is when you deal with those like complicated databases, let's say structured data, whatever databases, SQL Server or Oracle, and some of those sophisticated applications, the data model is so complicated, hundreds, hundreds of table, and they got hundreds of columns. Even those column names, you can't even make a sense of it just by looking at it. So if you want an agent to understand those type of data, how it's going to do it though?
This might be a situation where we've got to consider cleaning up some of the data. If it's overly complicated, how historical is some of this? You mentioned some of these fields. Is it just reading? Are these fields, is it just the GUID that's the header for the field?
Well,
What
if you
type
look
of
at
data is
the
it should be
models,
asked?
there's the big, that's why you have SMEs who are very specialized, understanding the data model, power the service now or power the Jira behind the scene. If you just look at it, the table name and look at the column, even your database concept really well, you don't understand what those data is for. I wonder if you want an agent to understand those, what are the work you had to do ahead of time
I think
to make sense of that, to get these ready.
I haven't
I
seen this
think
yet, but I'm
from
suspecting that some of the agents have the ability to be able to look at the data that's there, and through the way the table's structured and the references that are in there, that they're able to make sense of some of the actual data in the columns itself to say that if it looks like this, it's probably, if it has a name and it has an address and it has this, it's probably a location and it's, or a business or a person and some of the other pieces, and then use the large language model behind it to reference what those data types are, or those data components are that it sees within there, to be able to start to work out some of that structure, even though the naming conventions may be absolutely barbaric, or like you said, you may have 100 tables that are out there that are quite complex. It has that capability of starting to pull that stuff together into a picture that it can understand.
Yeah, and sometimes it can be a case where it is so advanced and sophisticated that you're going to need a middleware in between. It could be a custom API or a plugin that you build that can fetch that data for you, or you leverage AI search. It does really well for relational data.
That's a good call out there, Geeta. Yeah, Azure AI Search would be a good tool to bring into the mix there as well. And then again, if it's computational data, Don, we got to consider the type of model that we need to use with that, because a large language model may not be the best fit.
Thank you.
And like you said, depending on the complexity, you're still likely going to have to do a lot of work to configure it to what you need.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. Home stretch. Let's talk a little bit about governance and security with Copilot Studio. So governing and administering Copilot Studio and any of the agents that have been created with Copilot Studio is accomplished using parameters that are set in a tool that you're probably already using if you are using the Power Platform, that being the Power Platform Admin Center. And then there's another tool that is for Copilot Studio Admin Center. So there are some governance and administration features that are unique to the tool, but because Copilot Studio exists as a tool within the Power Platform, many other governance and administration features will exist within the Admin Center. So what does governance of Copilot Studio look like? Next, I've got a short demo video I think I shared with audio of someone that's running through the attempted deployment of a custom agent and how they're forced through deployment via pipelines and then enforcing the DLP policies that are already in place and administered by IT. I'm going to go ahead and kick this off. It's obviously it's going to give me sounds. At least give me a thumbs up that you can hear it. If not, Keith will let me know. Cool. All right, good stuff. So even though the governance and administration of Copilot Studio is done with a pair of admin centers, I want to make sure that we're focused more on the Copilot Studio centric governance and administration. So we believe organizations will create a wide range of agents, from the simplest that respond when you prompt them to the most advanced that act autonomously and make their own dynamic plans. Excuse me, we expect them to come in all shapes and sizes. And one thing to note is that each agent is made up of the same components. An agent's anatomy consists of knowledge, skills, autonomous capabilities, an orchestrator, and foundational models. And Copilot is just one big agent behind the scenes. Agents can also call additional agents, referred to as multi-agent workflows. So, for example, your Microsoft 365 Copilot may call on different Copilot agents to bring new skills and knowledge into the mix. And you as the user are going to be none the wiser because you're not going to know that you're communicating with other agents. The Copilot stack is a comprehensive framework that's designed to help makers create custom AI agents. It starts with cloud and edge. This layer provides the infrastructure that's needed to run AI models and services, whether in the cloud or at the edge. And then AI infrastructure, which is going to include the hardware and software resources that are needed to train and deploy your AI models. Next, we have your foundational models. These are large scale AI models that serve as the base for building specific applications and services. And then comes your data, which involves integrating and utilizing your organization's data to enhance the AI model's performance and relevance. And all of this is passed through some sort of AI orchestrator and tool chain, which are the tools and processes needed to manage and deploy AI models effectively. And then again, all this is accessed through tools like Copilot and agents that are built in Copilot Studio and surrounded with AI safety, security, and that responsible AI standards and practices that I mentioned earlier. Now, when we look at the stack as it applies to Copilot Studio, we can expand our authoring capabilities to include access to low-code function-based languages like Power Effects, and we can directly from the authoring canvas and review engagement analytics. And the orchestration engine gives you access to skills via the Azure Agent Framework and the ability to use plugins and connectors to expand agentic capabilities and knowledge. And lastly, we can access and engage with our agents that are built in Copilot Studio via Teams or through Microsoft 365 Copilot. Okay, so I know we're coming at times, and I know a couple of people have had to drop because of the time. But the last thing that I wanted to call out, I know Geetha, you mentioned, and thank you for doing so. I run an educational series that we do monthly here at Microsoft called the Power Platform Master Series. I try to do a thing every month. I got speakers that are internal speakers. We bring in people from our product group to come in sometimes and talk. We've had customers come and tell their success stories around the platform, but it's really designed to be an educational series again for the Power Platform community. And we've got a conversation coming up March 19th for the relevant to the conversation. We've been talking AI for the past hour and a half almost. And one of my technical peers, Nico, and one of our specialists from the data and AI team are going to present on ways to leverage the Power Platform to optimize AI costs. So they're going to look at pulling in, Don, this might be something that you'd be interested in. They're going to look at working with Foundry, working with different models, and they're specifically targeting spit. And so there is, of course, I forget what the actual KPI is, watts per, what is it? It's a watts basically per spend on your AI costs. So there's obviously an electrical or an electric spend on how much computational power is behind this. And they're going to be talking about ways to look at different models to make things lean when we talk about how much it costs to utilize AI. So something to keep in mind, there's a QR code along with a registration link there. So love to have you guys a part of the conversation on the 19th. But with that being said, Geetha, I'll hand things over to you unless anybody's got any follow-up questions.
Yeah, I don't see any questions in the chat, but we still have time. So I see, Robert, you have your hands raised. Please feel free to drop the question.
Yes, please. So I do want to note, and Jeff called out the Master Series, but we do also have, if you haven't heard about it, there's a big AI tour where our executive leadership is touring all around. So the lead of our MCAPS organization, which we're a part of, is going to be at the Houston Convention Center, I believe it is. I'll throw the information in the chat. It is on March 19th. So if you are looking to learn more, again, this is a in-person event, what Jeff is referring to as a virtual event. So again, welcome to attend both. But on March 19th, also, there is the AI tour. So if you want to meet some folks in person, have some very direct conversations, I imagine some of our team will probably be there as well as we're getting more organized around it. I'll throw the information in the chat for everyone to browse and share.
Yeah. Thanks, Robert.
Thank you. Great.
Yeah, Jeffrey, I know the agentic stuff, but that's pretty new. Do you have any resource or suggestion regarding how to architect a agentic solution? Like you can have an HR agent or you can have a customer service agent, but this is so generic. But when you look into it, look deeper, there are a lot of complicated strategies and patterns. And do you have any resource that you might be able to learn a little bit about that?
Yeah, let me look for some stuff. I can drop them here in the chat. At top of mind, I immediately, because we're looking at something that's so new, I don't know if you're familiar with the Copilot Studio dude on YouTube. His real name is Dwayne Robinson. Dwayne actually works at Microsoft as the principal Copilot Studio architect. He's the guy that puts hands on keyboard when it comes time to making changes and listening to the feedback from our customers. So he's got a good YouTube channel that puts out a lot of some of the stuff he's putting out has either just been released or is to be released in the near future. So that's the first thought that I've got. Let me look up his YouTube channel and I'll drop that here. As far as anything that's out there on learn.microsoft, that's going to be another great resource to dig into. Yeah. Thanks, Robert. That's going to be another great resource to dig into. And we are constantly updating that. I'm constantly referencing it and finding articles that are days old. It is a up-to-date resource. But again, since it's so new, it's hard to find a lot of stuff that's out there. Robert, I don't know if you've got any other thoughts on good resources to chase down, but I think also a big part of conversations like this, joining sessions like the Master Series, where we go into and bring in resources to have these conversations. And then of course we can always, outside of these open or public forums, have conversations with you and work with you in more of a one-on-one setting.
Sure. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you so much. It's lots of invaluable stuff that you've shared here. I know it's always never enough time when we're enjoying the presentation and there's lots of goodies in it. I got a lot of golden nuggets out of your session. Very excited to see if we can take that learnings and put that out in real time. But thanks again for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for reaching out, Geetha. I enjoyed it. And again, if anybody's got any questions along the way, Don, I'm looking at you. Feel free to reach out. I know my contact information has been posted, so feel free to reach out. And if I can't answer, we'll get you connected with the right folks that can.
Thank you.
And just sharing, we have the next visit coming up in April, which is April 8th. So for those of you who are on the Microsoft community portal, continue to follow that and subscribe to that. We're just testing out both platforms to see where we have more visibility. But if you'd like just on the meetup, I just posted a link over there. But thanks again to everyone for taking the time on a weekday evening to join us. And then as always, your support is very helpful And we hope to continue to host this. We've been hosting it virtually since COVID. But if there's interest in meeting in person, let me know. I would love to get that going, and maybe we can look at having a hybrid or an in-person event and maybe alternate between that for the next couple of months. But hopefully I will see you all on April 8th.